Thanks for clicking! All eyes were on Stats Canada this morning as it was set to release Canada's inflation data for the month of August, with analysts expecting inflation to come in at 2.1%. We got our answer at 8:30 this morning when inflation came in actually lower, coming in at 2% exactly.
I won.
And the news will no doubt give the Bank of Canada even more ammunition to continue down its rate-cutting path, with even Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem raising the possibility of larger cuts at its press conference last week. And if you follow any realtor on social media at all, you'll know that CIBC is calling for jumbo rate cuts in the next few months, with mortgage broker hero and chief Benjamin Tell saying the Bank of Canada is going to cut fast and deep.
Surprise the market and go a bit below that to, let's say, 250, 225, I think the market will react and we will see the 5-year rate, mortgage rates going down. That will help to revive the economy.
We love him. We love him.
But yeah, the Bank of Canada is not cutting for a good reason, and as such, I think a bit of context is in order. What does Canada's economy usually look like if the bank is cutting by 50 basis points or more? So what I want to do today is go over Canada's inflation data for the month of August, take a look at Benjamin Tell's interview and CIBC's prediction that the bank will be engaging in jumbo rate cuts over the next few months, and then discuss what the economy usually looks like when the bank is cutting by that much. As we'll see today, the bank is expected to continue down its rate-cutting cycle over the coming months and years ahead, and we will obviously continue to track Bank of Canada policy on this channel. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, let's get into this data. On to the data. As mentioned, Canada's inflation rate came in at 2% in August, the lowest inflation Canada has seen since February of 2021.
On paper.
Much of the downward pressure on the CPI came from lower gas prices and base year effects, but even with that said, without gas, inflation still came in at 2.2. Still much better than we've seen. Major upward contributors to the inflation rate were mortgage interest costs, rent, car insurance, food from restaurants, and property taxes. You know, the non-essentials, with downward pressure on inflation coming from gas, telephone, women's clothing, car prices, and computers. And core inflation, the measures the Bank of Canada looks to when deciding monetary policy, also fell as well, with core median dropping from 2.4 to 2.3 and core trim dropping from 2.7 to 2.4. So headline inflation down to 2%, core inflation falling as well. All good news for Canadian prices, all signs pointing to a Bank of Canada that will be continuing to cut rates.
We're in the clear. We're in the clear.
And on this, CIBC is very much in agreement, saying that it's time for the Bank of Canada to declare victory on inflation and get the economy moving again, noting that there is no reason not to speed up the process of getting interest rates down materially.
So that there's no reason. Reason.
As such, says CIBC, we should be expecting the Bank of Canada to cut rates by 50 basis points at both its December and January meetings. So we're at 4.25 right now, assuming the bank cuts by 0.25 in October, and then we see another 100 basis point cuts between December and January. That would bring the policy rate down to 3% just in time for the spring market.
As I have foreseen.
But mortgage broker Oracle and CIBC's chief Benjamin Tell says that the Bank of Canada may have to go much further than that.
The market is expecting the Bank of Canada to stop at about 275. And I'm submitting that maybe the Bank of Canada will go below that in order to stimulate the economy.
So, as mentioned, right now the policy rate is sitting at 4.25, and CIBC's Benjamin Tell says that the bank is going to have to go even more than 150 basis points lower in order to get the economy going again. And Tell, very succinctly, went over the current economic problems facing Canada.
For young people, age 18 to 24, they are really struggling. The unemployment rate is north of 12-13% for young people. The unemployment rate for Canada as a whole is rising. The quit rate, the rate at which people are quitting, is below 2019 level. So clearly the labor market is not as inviting as it used to be. By design. That's exactly what the Bank of Canada would like to see. And that's exactly why the Bank of Canada is starting to worry that maybe they did too much.
And yeah, we've talked about this at great length on this channel since the bank started raising rates. That, in order to get inflation under control, the bank very much wanted to see this happen. It very much wanted to see this weakness in the economy. as a means of slowing inflation, which does appear to be working. So, according to CIBC, according to a number of analysts, the Bank of Canada is going to be going fast and deep on the rate cuts. But that does raise the question, what does the economy usually look like when the Bank of Canada goes fast and deep?
What does that matter?
Well, let's take a look at the history of the Bank of Canada's overnight rate accessed from the Federal Reserve. I would prefer to get the data directly from the source, but the Federal Reserve actually gives us more data than that which is available from the Bank of Canada, which only offers a history of its overnight rate since 2014. With that said, the Federal Reserve isn't perfect, and for one reason or another, each of their rates are listed as 0.25% higher than they actually are, so we'll just minus 0.25% from every rate on the data set. And then we'll ask Excel to highlight every time the bank cut rates by 50 basis points or more. So let's take a look at the times the bank engaged in those jumbo rate cuts. Well, we have COVID, then we have the 2008 global financial crisis, then we have 9/11 and the dot-com bust, all not really great times for the economy. Moving right along, we get a bunch of big cuts in 94, 95, and 96, back when the unemployment rate was hovering around 10%. Moving back to 91 and 92, again, we have an unemployment rate between 10 and 12%. Go back to 86, again, unemployment over 10%, almost 12% in 1982, when we got jumbo rate cuts back then. Again, you get the idea. So, going back, looking at 4 decades worth of data, when the Bank of Canada engages in jumbo rate cuts, cutting interest rates by 50 basis points or more, it's doing so because it's ultra concerned with Canada's economy. It's not doing so for a good reason. Yet, if we look over social media, if we hear from the usual suspects, these jumbo rate cuts are being discussed as though there's something promising, something with which we should look forward to. But, as we've seen, any other time we've had these jumbo rate cuts over the past 40 years, it's not been something to which people should be excited.
This time it's different.
So, all in all, regarding prices, good news coming out of Stats Canada. Inflation is once again, down to 2%, sitting exactly at 2%, and measures of core inflation continue to ease as well. With that said, as designed by the Bank of Canada, this lower inflation rate is coming amidst a weakening economy. An economy where the unemployment rate is now sitting at 6.6%, and if the Bank of Canada does engage in those jumbo rate cuts being called for by CIBC and others, that's not a sign of good things to come. As history has shown, a 50 basis point or higher rate cut is a sign that the economy is in trouble. With that said, we will obviously continue to track Canada's economy on this channel. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, thanks so much for watching.